According to Saitama, when life gets you down or a villain beats your ass, just have a banana. The second season of One-Punch Man continues as Garou goes on a rampage, desperately wanting to act like a monster and take down all of the superheroes that he encounters. This was a pretty awesome episode as we finally got to see Garou taking on a number of heroes and making absolute fools out of all of them. This episode also introduced a number of other heroes who are completely there just to be jokes. Like this one hero, whose entire shtick seems to be that he has a nose-based costume. I don't know what this guy does. Does he sneeze really loud? Does he shoot snot at people? I kind of wanted to see what the nose guy was gonna do, but before he could even do anything, Garou just ends up bashing his brains in. And one of the biggest conflicts of this episode is watching Garou throw down with the Tank Top Master, the leader of this group of superheroes who are all themed after the different tank tops that they wear. We actually saw him in the first season, and he's incredibly powerful. He's an S-class hero. This guy is so strong that he can actually grab giant slabs of concrete out of the ground and hurl them at extreme speeds. And we actually get to see him utilizing some really cool techniques against Garou, who, of course, ends up completely wrecking his world and taking out the other tank top heroes. This was a really cool action scene. I really did enjoy it, although I have to admit, I can definitely tell that they're pulling their punches a little bit when it comes to the animation in this series. It also didn't help either that when I was actually watching this episode, my good friend Christian was watching it over my shoulder, and the first thing he said as soon as the action scene was done was that it looked a million times better in the manga. This is something that a lot of you have even said in the comments section when regarding the second season of One Punch Man when compared to its source material. As someone who actually doesn't read the manga, I don't really have a gauge for actually viewing how that is. Although I will say that I can definitely tell that they are taking some shortcuts in terms of the action, but even as far as entertainment value goes, I have to admit there were some scenes in this episode that were pretty damn thrilling. So, Garou ends up taking out the Tank Top Master and all of his goons, and then he even goes after this other character by the name of Golden Ball, whose powers basically a result to him having a big slingshot that he can shoot these little gold balls and bullets all over the place, having them ricochet, and it's actually kind of cool. It's not the flashiest and crazy ability that we've seen from the series, but at least it's something new, and we even got to see Garou get hurt as one of these things actually went directly through his leg. We even get the return of the mustached hero himself who has a fencing sword, and he even gets to give Garou a tough time. But of course, whoever runs into this character ends up getting their asses completely handed to him. That is until the big conflict at the very end of the episode, when Garou and Saitama actually meet for the very first time. Now, before I actually get to their confrontation, I want to bring up the fact that this episode also sees the return of Moomin Rider, who is the most pathetic but also amazing hero. Amazing in the sense that he never gives up, pathetic in the sense that he always gets his ass handed to him, and of course, Garou ends up beating his ass in this episode. But he actually ends up going to the hospital along with Shiranko, who is a student of Silver Fang, who's also the teacher of Garou. Saitama decides to go see all these heroes who's been beaten up by Garou, and he does so by giving them a banana because I guess they have low potassium. Either that or it's some sort of weird joke that I don't quite get, but it actually ends up being kind of funny. So Shiranko actually ends up telling Saitama a little bit about this big fighting competition which is coming up, as well as the power of Garou, and he actually decides that he's going to give him a ticket to go to this thing, but Saitama himself is actually going to enter this competition. I'm not quite sure why he's going to do this, but he's going to have to put on some sort of costume, a secret costume, in order to enter. And at the very end of the episode, he ends up inadvertently running into Garou at this costume shop, and he's about to buy a wig. Of course, he doesn't realize who this is, and what's really funny here is that Garou decides to get into a fight with him, which amounts to him not doing jack shit. I mean, that's really just what always happens with Saitama, and I have to say, after seeing Garou act like a complete beast for the last couple of episodes, it was kind of cool to see the villain get knocked down a peg or two after he realized that none of his attacks had any sort of effect on Saitama. He gives him one karate chop, Saitama decides to give him one back, and boom, Garou's Wolverine-haired ass is in the dust. It was a really funny scene and a great way to end this episode. So what's the rundown on this episode of One Punch Man? I have a feeling that this is the type of the episode that people who don't read the manga will probably like, and those who do read the manga will probably not like at all. And even I have to admit, there are some scenes in this episode which are completely devoid of a lot of detail, and that can be kind of distracting, especially when you compare it to the first season. Although, like I said in my previous reviews, I'm going to do everything in my power to not compare it to the first season, as really that was just sort of an anomaly. I don't think we're ever going to get anything like that again, and to sit here and constantly do that would just be simply a waste of your time and mine. I just want to talk about some of the good elements of this episode, and I think this episode did a great job of establishing Garou and his overall motive, which is basically just killing people for fun. He wants to be a monster, he wants to be a villain, he really wants to challenge himself. But why this is still kind of a mystery. They're building up to that a little bit more with the reintroduction of Silver Fang and even another new character who's his brother, another martial arts master, as they go and try and find his student. And I'm really waiting for that moment where we're going to have a battle between those two characters, because I think it's going to be very intense, and it'll finally reveal the true motive behind what Garou is actually doing. I'm sure there's something a little deeper that's going on here, but most of this episode was just kind of a drag, to be perfectly honest. A lot of it went really slow of watching Garou go around and mess people up, and sometimes it looked really good, and other times it looked really bad. That's just the way that I actually viewed this episode. That being said, I still found it really entertaining, and the action wasn't even my favorite part of the episode. It was watching Saitama just hand out bananas, thinking that it would make people a lot happier. That, and I do think it's really funny that every single time we see Saitama in his apartment, there's always a lot more people there. Of course, we have Genos who's there, who's sort of basically his maid at this point, but King is there playing video games, and even Hellish Blizzard Fubuki is also there. Basically, he's got his own group of friends now, and I can't wait to see if more people are eventually going to be getting in there, and seeing how crowded it's actually going to get in such a small space. I thought that was actually kind of funny. Moomin Rider returning was also a pleasant surprise, as, like I said, he's pathetically hilarious, but at the same time, he's a character you truly can look up to, if only for the fact that he simply never gives up in the face of adversity. He went up against the Sea King and almost got killed, he went up against Garou and almost got killed, but he's not giving up. The scene where Garou is just smashing his face into the concrete too, I don't know why, I thought that was just really funny. Mostly for how over the top and bloody it was, and how that probably should have killed the character. But again, I have a feeling that nothing's going to kill Moomin Rider. My personal theory is that while he can bleed and get hurt, he has super regenerative abilities. He's like a really lame version of Deadpool, if you will. Otherwise, I thought this was a solid episode, but one that could have looked a lot better in certain departments. Otherwise, I thought it was entertaining as all hell, but I have to say that this is probably the first episode of the season, which left me feeling a little lukewarm. And that's why I'm going to give the episode a 3 out of 5. A fun, average episode of One Punch Man, but it really is a shame to say that there is an average episode of One Punch Man. But those are my thoughts. Yours may differ, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below, and what you hope to see from the rest of the season. Did you have any favorite moments from this episode of watching Garou go on his rampage? Any favorite hero moments? What do you hope to see in this big fighting tournament which is going to be coming up? I think it's kind of fitting that a series like this, which is effectively a parody of shonen battle manga, would have something of a tournament arc, and I'm very excited to see how all that's going to go. Basically, let's just have a discussion about this episode in the comment section below. Thank you all for watching this review. I'll see you all next time, and as always, stay down now, baby.